Sorry, Hillary, it's back. The thing that makes no difference at all. Benghazi. As the Select Committee holds its first hearing tomorrow, we find that a former State Department official told lawmakers that Hill's pals removed documents before turning files over to investigators. Here's Cheryl Atkinson on Greta about that official.
Ray Maxwell, who is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary, very well respected, told me that he witnessed an after-hours session in the basement of the State Department in an operations center in which he was told by an office director that they were under orders to separate documents before they went to the Accountability Review Board, to separate out anything that could be embarrassing, as he put it, to the 7th floor or the front office, 7th floor referring to Secretary of State Clinton and her advisors.
Nothing to see here, of course, but on cue, left-wing groups are already spitting out press release denials like cats coughing up fur balls. And if you're a lazy hack, that's your script. This must be the first time ever that a White House has proxies doing its PR. You got to hand it to these Benghazi deniers. If only the White House showed this much speed that night in 2012. So let's return to who pushed the video, because it's that question that tells the whole story, Bob. Here's a president who had advice for ISIL. If they had pinned notes to the victims instead of beheading them, we would have reacted differently. So the same man who thinks ISIL would listen to him is the same guy who said a film caused Benghazi, meaning he's always wrong about evil. It's the spectacle of the beheadings that galvanized evil, and bailing on Benghazi helped get that ball rolling. When the bad act brazenly and the good blame others, both energize jihadists. And as our pliant media rolled up into a protective ball around Obama, ISIL saw the writing on that compound wall, and they grinned. I mean, who thinks evil responds to appeasement? The guy who flies to Vegas or golfs when evil shows up? ISIL must be laughing their heads off while planning to cut off yours. Dana, you know what amazes me is how quickly these activist groups like Media Matters magically appear. Here, they send out the emails. I got like 2 of them today, to attack actual journalists doing their jobs.
Yeah, and as you said, right on cue, if this were a Republican organization,
yes,
they would be targeted by the IRS so quickly. The Media Matters gets tax-exempt status. They really are a proxy of the Democratic National Committee and also part of Hillary Clinton's cover-up committee. There's a concerted effort by the Democrats to hinder an investigation, discredit a career civil servant.
True.
Before he even has a chance to testify. They wanted to try to get in front of the story because their goal is not to get to the truth, it's to win a news cycle.
Bob, you know, I know that you don't think this is a big story, but it seems like whenever there's a revelation, everybody says it's no big deal. But didn't this failure, in a way, pave the way for ISIS? Because it gave ISIS an idea that we're not willing to deal with these things?
Well, first of all, I will break my silence to this just for a second and say that I think that I have no doubt that the career civil servant saw what he saw and heard what he heard, but let's remember that he heard it from somebody else who was reporting it. But leaving that aside. And I don't think, by the way, so we always come back, if it was a Republican, it would be somebody, things would be different. I'm not sure that's right. But what the difference is here is the communication on this was not very well coordinated. The information was late in coming. And I think to that extent, you could say that there is a connection. The system broke down a little bit on ISIS the way it did on this other story.
And also, let me just say, Maxwell was there. He said that he walked in on the weekend session on a Sunday afternoon. That's what he's reporting, a first-hand account.
But how can you say the information broke down? They had adequate, and I would say pretty alarming warnings from the ambassador, Christopher Stevens, direct cables sent from Benghazi to Hillary Clinton, to the Secretary of State, asking for increased security for that consulate. They saw the writing on the wall with what happened to the British embassy and the Red Cross. They had shut down their embassies for fear of a terrorist attack. And Bob, this was a consulate that was attacked twice before September 11th. Why didn't they protect Americans? And that's the question that Hillary Clinton has not answered yet. Why did she leave Americans to die, not just that day, but why didn't she protect the embassy in the months and weeks leading up to that? I mean, and she also has to tell us her position on radical Islam. Because we're talking about the media candy crowling for her, which they're going to do. They're going to do their best to keep the lie alive for as long as they can. And I think that's where her negatives will go up, if she doesn't answer the question why she left Americans to die in our consulate and gave them, as you said, Greg, the heads up to have a pool party at our embassy in Libya just a couple weeks ago, because they know we're not really doing our best to
It's not a
secure
Secretary
it.
of State who doesn't get these things from all over the world. It's not her responsibility to handle every
This
one
was
of them.
her friend.
The second thing was, I feel terrible that what happened to the ambassador, but if you thought the thing was unstable, why take people there? Why?
So why didn't they close it?
They should have.
Okay.
He was in a position to
major
close it if he
failure.
wanted to.
So can I just take a step back here? And again, this is what happens. This stuff starts to come out. We investigate.
Right.
We talk about it. The left calls us racist for talking about it, or we're wrong, or
No, we're
sexist,
hoaxers.
or hoaxers, or we're making stuff up. And then as time goes, more and more information comes out. President Obama was asked directly by Bill O'Reilly, is there any corruption in the IRS scandal? He said, not a smidgen. Well, you know what? He's playing a semantic game. It wasn't a smidgen. There's a whole boatload of corruption, which we found out later. President Obama said Obamacare won't cost the American taxpayer a dime. He wasn't lying there either, because it's going to end up costing $1 trillion. So the games they play to try and cover up all the scandals and all the lies that they're perpetrating are ridiculous. And you know, the poor American public just goes, oh, really? Why is Fox doing that? I can't believe they're not over 4 Americans being killed when they didn't have to die. Honestly, Ange, you're right. They didn't have to die that day.
I want to touch on the media stuff, and I know I talked to Bob earlier. He said, you asked me, can we get a sound on tape of Krauthammer talking about this? And so I went and got one for you.
You know, I've been waiting for this. Thank God we got him back finally. We've got some gravitas here.
It took a while. Jay, this is actually Krauthammer and Hayes discussing the media coverage on Special Report.
The media aren't curious. Nobody's asking why is it going quicker. It's a sleeper story. But once you get people under oath, you're going to get stuff coming in. And if this happened, as Maxwell is saying, then this is really serious. This is a cover-up.
This is a non-story to most people in the mainstream media. If that actually happened, that's a huge story. I mean, that is the cover-up. That would be the beginning of the cover-up.
That's, I think, the real scam here, and it's always been, is the media sweeping the failure in leadership and management to ensure Obama's election. Wasn't that what it's about? It was always about that debate and making sure he didn't get smeared by this.
Yes, number one was Obama's reelection. But number two, and simultaneously, it was Hillary's election. And interestingly, the media doesn't care about who pushed the video lie. They don't care about answering these other questions that we've brought up. So I don't understand why her people went forward, according to an eyewitness, a career civil servant who lost his job to protect Hillary Clinton because they were allegedly, and we'll hear the testimony about it soon this week, whitewashing the documents, whitewater washing the documents.
Nice.
I mean, do you see a pattern here? Career civil servants have paid a price to protect Hillary Clinton's political future over and over again.
Who
and
got
the media
fired?
doesn't
Who got
care.
fired?
This guy Maxwell, the
But
witness.
Did Maxwell not say on our lead in here that he said he heard this from the guy who was in
No,
charge
I'm
of that
reading it
room?
right here that he walked into the weekend session on a Sunday afternoon after hearing about it. He walked into the room after he heard about it, so he saw it for himself.
Okay, all right.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say that when people ask the executive branch, when Congress asks the executive branch for documentation on a certain subject, they are going to go through a lot of documents, and some things are going to be relevant, some things aren't. I mean, the idea that somehow they're separating out things that are embarrassing.
Do you think that Hillary Clinton's personal advisor, political advisor, and the one who was making the calls that night, sitting in the room, do you think that would be normal, Bob, to like going through thousands of documents?
No,
that is not normal,
listen,
but that's what happened.
I said about this event that I thought this was came at a bad time for them when they were running for re-election, and it was about his re-election. I don't think he had anything to do with it, but it was about his re-election. And so, I mean, the way that the thing was played out.
He had nothing to do with it, but isn't that the problem? I mean,
well, no, but I mean, political advisors do that all the time on behalf of
but
candidates.
he was so
but that was
incompetent to deal with the security issue at the embassy.
Who was incompetent?
The president and the Secretary of State.
The president of the United States does not deal with security in embassies.
Oh, okay, so hands off.
No, it's
that is U.S. territory, by the way, the embassy, and it had been attacked twice before. So we're to assume that when U.S. soil is attacked overseas, the president doesn't get a heads up on that? Of course he does.
But we know that he did.
Yes, we do. And we know that he made a phone call to Hillary Clinton and Leon Panetta, but no follow-up calls, which I think is a little odd. If you know that U.S. soil is being attacked and Americans are in jeopardy by radical Islamic jihadists, not out for a walk, as Hillary Clinton said, don't you follow up to see how it ended, how it turned out? No, he did not do that. And, you know, it does make a difference. Because if they're trying to scrub these documents, then it does make a difference.
Well,
if it didn't, you'd leave the documents and you'd let the truth play out, but they haven't done that.
This is going to cause a disturbance here at this table, I know, but let me make a point. There were over 20 people, diplomats, who died when George Bush was in office.
Oh my God.
I don't blame George Bush for not knowing about each one of those things. I don't think he did.
Bob, you've really got to get off the conspiracy theory websites and get some facts. Because
did they or did they not?
Because they were being attacked by terrorists and the president ignored them? No.
How did
people
they die?
die at embassies? Yes. Do you find out why? Of course you do. Do we know why of this one? No, we don't. Why? Because Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were so consumed with their own politics that even when the media doesn't care about it, they are determined to try to find some way to protect their political
Who
hides.
handled it during your administration?
Bob, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Okay, if mistakes were made, maybe they've been made on other administrations' watch as well. But the problem is the cover-ups afterwards, the scrubbing the documents here, the lost email, the lost hard drives with Lois Lerner, the
blaming the video was a cover-up.
Blaming the video, going out there, making a video, blaming another video.
Yes.
Going out there saying we heard about the AP scandal, the James Rosen scandal, we heard about it on TV. It's the afterward. It's the cover. It's not so much the mistakes, although those are bad. It's the aftermath. It's the cover-up scandal. That's when it really becomes scandalous. You can't lean back and huff and puff and not say, well, they're pretty active at doing this. They're pretty active at sweeping the facts under the rug.
I'm not huffing and puffing. I was trying to get some air. I was having a hard time breathing. But the fact of the matter is that all these things you say are all scandals and they're all cover-ups. It's impossible to carry on that many cover-ups at one time in Washington, D.C. I don't buy it.
So because when it's replacing the next one.
So the IRS stuff wasn't a scandal. It's not a cover. Those hard drives were accidentally lost.
I think Lerner
scrubbing document. I mean, Bob, come on.
I think Lerner got rid of her own hard drives.
But if the media doesn't stay on the story, of course you can keep all these scandals going. I mean, my issue with the media is they seem to veer in and out of consciousness on Benghazi. So they'll spend a couple weeks actually pursuing the story. You'll see good reporting from Jonathan Karl and others, and then it just falls off the wayside. And journalists like Stephen Hayes and others are the ones that stay on it and keep the score going.
And you see some terrible analysis of some people suggesting that this story today is only about the midterms, when they've told us for the last eight months or so that it doesn't matter in the midterms. So then why do they worry about it so much? Let's just hear the testimony.
Yeah, and if it was about reporters out there, why in the world do you think they would not cover one of these things? They all want to be.
They love Obama. They love Obama.
Oh, they don't all love Obama.
There have been like 4 Watergates in the last 6 years, and they don't cover it. They also don't cover it, and I've said this before, because Fox News covers it, and it's like, well, if those guys do it, then we're not going to do it because Obama doesn't like Fox News, so we don't want to look like them, and we still want to be able to go to the cocktail
So you think
parties.
we're responsible for that?
Yeah, it's Fox
for
News.
Truth. I'd rather be on that side.
Yeah, but it's Fox News avoidance syndrome. It's like if we do it, they won't do it. And they still want to go to the Upper West Side cocktail parties. And if you talk about Benghazi, they're not going to let you in.
But will they cover it when she starts to undermine him on Benghazi? One of them is going to have to start undermining the other. Hillary's going to have to start undermining the president, or vice versa. Are they going to cover that story?
I think it'll be vice versa first.
You think it'll be
or after
the president undermining her? I don't know. Those Clintons, I think they've already started.
All right.